Hi, friends. Welcome back to part 2 of the landlord saga drama. I'm your host, Mads, and I just hope this podcast is something where you just feel like a little bit lighter when you listen to it, whether you feel better about decisions you make in your life based off the decisions I've made in my life. But nonetheless, welcome back to It's Not That Deep. If you listened to the first episode, thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know. I'm also slightly uncomfortable with doing all of this still, so we are working on gaining that confidence of just being happy about our decision that we made. I will say that I had a lot of feedback and I had a lot of people listen, which thank you. I know it was 40 some minutes of your life, and it wasn't anything spectacular. Of course, I wanted to do some extra things, but I'm releasing perfectionism from this little hobby of mine and just really enjoying doing it and talking. And I do enjoy doing this and I do enjoy talking. So we are going to continue. Some things that I got feedback on, though, that I wanted to talk about was every person that reached out said the same thing, one of the same thing, and it was that they appreciated my vulnerability. And I guess I didn't realize how vulnerable I am when I am talking. I am happy. That's something that will always happen on this podcast. I am happy to talk about anything, and I am happy to talk about everything. However, I also got a piece of advice that maybe I should, just be careful about putting things out there and, guard what's in your heart, and some things are just kept for yourself. And I do agree with that. So I have sat on it, and there was a lot to last week's episode. If you haven't listened, that's okay. Synopsis: I dated my landlord, and I still am currently renting from him. And he asked me for an open relationship 2 years in and 3 years in. And I couldn't do it, but I tried. And I essentially, it woke me up. I didn't realize what I was in until that question was asked, and it was really my world got flipped upside down, and that's kind of what I was talking about then in episode 1. And so at the end of the day of episode 1 for It's Not That Deep, we wanted different things. His version of relationship versus mine, different. So at the end of the day, we just weren't right for each other. However, there's a lot of shit that happened in between, and I feel the need to say something about it. So I'm going to. Welcome to the second episode of Missed the Mark. I will say, I talked about how he wanted an open relationship. So there's a lot of sexual stuff that got requested, asked, and done of me. However, I think I'm not going to go too much into that. My biggest piece of advice around it is that if you are in something ever and you just don't feel safe in your bone, you just have the feeling of this doesn't feel safe to me, this doesn't feel right to me, don't do it. That's one thing I can hang my hat on happily, is I never crossed the line to feel regret on that one. So a lot of things got requested of me, and a lot of boundaries got pushed, but my true core values, my morals I didn't bend on those ones. And so I'm really happy, even at my lowest and my I was grasping for straws at the end, right? But there was a line for me that I couldn't cross, and I am proud of that. So if you're ever in something that is feeling unsafe to your soul or to your intuition, to your gut, trust it, and ask yourself the question as to why. Bring it up to your friends. If you are very alone, like how I was, go to a therapist. Even if you sign up for BetterHelp, anything. Just speaking it out loud will help you process if it's something that sits with you or not. But I will say that is the only thing that I'm going to kind of keep very vague on, and your minds can kind of go a little wherever they want to go. You are always more than welcome to message me on my socials. and I'll actually share my socials at the end of this podcast. I couldn't decide if I want to do that in the first episode, but I am going to do it in the second episode because, reach out if you want. I'm public anyways. So the recap of last week, dated the landlord, asked for open, and I was confused and alone, and I didn't know what to do, and it left me very heartbroken. I was at the lowest, I think, point of my existence, and I just needed to figure out how I was going to fall out of love with him, because I was still in love with him with all the fucked up things that he wanted from me, that he did for me. And for some reason, which I now know, I was just head over heels for this idea of a man that I thought that he was, which leads me into how did I get there? Like, how did I get to dating my landlord? How did I get to this point where things were just so messy? And I will start off by saying we started dating in 2020 where the world shut down. Our story leading up to that, I was working for him a year prior. It was nothing but platonic. There were things that he did, which now, hindsight, again, 2020, very inappropriate as I was an employee. But there were things that he did that I was just like, oh, like he caught my attention. And in 2019, I definitely did go on some dates, but I was in the way I spoke about him, the way that I had this connection. People asked, are you dating him? And I was like, no, I'm not, because I wasn't then. The New Year's of 2019 into 2020, it changed, and nothing actually happened, but there was some things that changed. We had a long late night, and conversation was good. And then into January of 2020, we pulled the trigger and crossed the boundary of like, we're never going to go back if we do this. And so, yeah, we ended up kissing, started dating at the end of 2020, or January of 2020, and by March, I was like nonstop at his house all the time. I was driving back and forth from where I was currently living, which is like a 30-minute drive south. And there was so much unknown during 2020. I just launched my salon, and the world shut down, and my business essentially shut down. And I was like, oh shit, perfect timing. But driving back and forth, there was talks of, I-25 shutting down and things like that. So it was just a very scary and unknown time. And I was fortunate to be in a job that was deemed essential. So then I was working a separate job besides at the salon. And so I just worked my little tail off and was always at his house because he lived closer. And then, things were just, it's called love bombing. And that's what happened. So I moved in like 3 months into dating him, which it felt longer because I worked for him for so long, but no, it was 3 months. When I look back at it, which is what I reflected on over Christmas this year, 3 months, and he cleaned out a closet and had a cute love note and, was all about me. He was all about me for honestly like the first 3 months, to my knowledge, of like wrapped up in me. But it was all new, and it was all wrong, and it was all, and I was enough to keep his attention going. And there was a lot that he got me because I shared so much, which is why I struggle right now even with the idea of dating. But it's the sharing of your fears, because that's what was used against me. I mean, honestly, I told him straight up my baggage is my family, and I will, that's it. There's a lot. I will never unpack or talk about my family on here. This is the only time that I will, but that's what I shared with him, and that was what was used against me. Not against me, but it was what he knew what he was doing. And I shared that with him. And whether he fully knew, he definitely knew that pulling me away from them was going to be the best thing that could happen for him. So, the love bombing. Love bombing is where these are acts of grandiose service, words, physical, We went on a lot of vacations. Like when those things are just so much in the beginning, that's a big, it's a big marker for you to be like, okay, is this healthy? And also, will this last longer? Is this who they are, or is this just a manipulation tactic? And for my instance, it was. I remember the days that I was like, he used to write me love notes all the time, sticky notes all the time. He always wrote me like changed up, they wrote me songs. It's like honestly gag worthy now, but like, and I have all of them. I'm ready to burn them, but that's a whole nother thing. It's just all, he knew, like when I loved it, like I would give, I'm like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And he'd always buy me water bottles and like would put a little heart on it. And he would make me coffee in the morning every morning. And he used to make like a latte for himself. And then he would make one for me. And then slowly it turned into like, he needed to fast. So then like he was doing like this liquid. It was honestly like, it was the lightest colored coffee I've ever seen in my entire life. So I slowly stopped drinking all of it, but I still wanted the cup because the gesture was so nice that I was like, I'll just take a small cup. And then all of a sudden like that stopped. And like mornings, like he would always rush out, but before in the early days, like he'd always lay in bed with me as long as he could until he could get, and granted, like for him, like the world shut down, so he had a couple jobs and they were just a little easier, so he had more time for me, and that's very, very important. He had time for me. And when this first all happened, I felt like it was so wrong because it was. I made a pro and cons list. Honestly, I could pull it up, but it would add minutes to this, but like I, over Christmas, reread it, and it was all cons. There was, the cons outweighed the pros, yet I still said yes, and I still said like fuck it, let's do it, because it was something that there was a draw, and we just understood each other without having to like actually talk, so it felt like soul connecting. And I remember he told me how he told his one friend who doesn't live here how much he's like, I called him after working with you one day, and I just said like she just gets me, and I did. It's because I'm fucking empathetic, and I listen, and I care, and like I got you because there was a connection, and he abused it, and that's a shitty thing that he did, and that's okay. But the love bombing was what got me in. That's how I got to dating him. The infatuation of the lifestyle also got me. I have always been a goal setter, and I've always wanted to own a high-rise condo in the middle of a city. Like that's still my goal. And so far I'm at the lowest level of, I'm on floor 1, but I'm in the middle of the city, and I like love it so much. But he gave me that dream, and he wasn't tearing it down then. He was like, yeah, this is how you'll get there. This is how you'll get there. This is how you'll get there. And at first I was like, yeah, because that's where my brain was at. I was on a freaking mission. I just opened my salon, and it worked. Like our goals were aligning in the beginning, and to his credit, I chose to keep him a secret from people. So I wasn't good at it at all, but I just was so, I knew it was so wrong. I wasn't ready to share with anybody, because I also knew how this could end, and how it would look like for me. No matter what the case is, I'm the younger one that it looks like I was going after him for money, or that he was providing all these things for me, and all he actually did was take my heart and abuse it, because I'm still living exactly how I was with him, except happier. So yeah, so that's that. He just showed me like the life that I was working towards, and I was like, I was freaking buying Papa John's because there was like, after so many you got a free pizza, and I was penny pinching and like really just at the lowest of the low. I mean, mind you, I was 23, so and I started a business at 23, so of course I wasn't like rolling in dough, but I was also happy where I was at. Like I was comfortable with it, and then that lifestyle like he just, started, everything was just excessive. And it was like, we never had groceries in our house. And I never reflected on that until the last year of me figuring out, my health goals. And I realized, like, I don't even know what to make because it was so minimal. Like, we only had chips and hummus in the house, coffee, and oat milk. Like, there was never, like, a meal. Like, I could never just go and open the fridge and be like, what can I make? Like, there was literally nothing. We barely had salt and pepper. And I just never wanted to get groceries because I didn't want to feel like a kid because of our age gap. Like, age gap was a huge thing. And I just didn't want to play, like, I didn't want it to look like I was playing house either. But I was. Like, it was our, like, we were living together for 3 years. Like, at what point is it not playing and it's, like, actually our life? And so, yeah, going on a tangent. But to reel it back in, it was like this, the way that I got into his life and so fast is because of that love bombing and then because of the power manipulation. So what I mean by that is, because of the age difference, because he had experienced more and he is at a different point in life, there were things that I wouldn't, like, he knew that it would help me. And he would always put it in the way of like, oh, but you don't have to. But the thing is like, he cleaned out a closet and was like, this closet's yours, but only if you want to. But like, of course I want to, but there was no like discussion of it. It was just done. And it was like, a letter was on the bed and it was all like, romanticized so that like I of course didn't say no. It's also like what I want, but I would have liked to have a discussion about it. But I thought it was cute at first because that was like new and I was like whatever. And then there were finances that got involved and I'm not going to discuss too much about it, but I will say like there was no discussion for it. It just happened. Like it was told when I get home and it's like I did this thing. You can cancel this thing. And there's 3 main events, and I'll say the one. No, I'm not going to say the one. There were 3 pivotal ones that it was like, why wouldn't I? But at the same time, every part of me was like, don't do it, Madison. But I also was like, why would he offer if it was not, like I didn't think he was doing anything malicious about it. Because I'm like, well, why would he was married and divorced, so like, why would you do this again? So then the only thing that I got smart on was, I did tell him that I would like to sign, actually, I'm not sharing that. But I will say the power manipulation was with money, and it was with the constant, like, framing of things. Like, he would comment things about what he loved about me early on so that I would make sure I would not do what he didn't like. So, for example, we worked downtown at a rooftop venue, and he would always be like, look at all those drunks out there, look at all those people not working, and look at us working. Like, it's so amazing how much we work. And, like, I'm like, yeah, but, like, to be honest, I'd rather be in bed. I don't need to be at the club or at this work. Like, I would love to be home sleeping. So, like, after a while, it was just like, okay, but I was so afraid to say, like, I was so afraid to be like, no, like, I enjoy my sleep. Like, I need to go to sleep. I don't want to be up until, like, 1 a.m. cleaning up a rooftop. Like, there were certain things that it just wasn't aligning with me, but I was afraid to say things because I'm like, I don't want him to look down on me. I don't want him to fall out of love with me. Like that, I mean, truly, like that's what it was. The whole first year was me clocking how to keep him by me changing truths that I didn't want to actually admit because I didn't want to lose him. Because I still loved everything that was happening in our life. Like, I loved our connection. Like, we did have this deep emotional connection when he was available. And the thing is that I thought he was always available until one day that he wasn't. And so it got to a point in about 2022 where I was like, what is this all for? Because now I'm sitting pretty. We moved apartments. We're in my dream apartment. Not this one, but like what I thought was a dream apartment. It was within walking distance from my work. My business was going really well. Like, so many things were good. yet I felt so empty. And that's when I was like, why do I feel so empty when I should feel so grateful? Like, that's what I always thought that. I'm like, why don't I feel grateful for things that people would kill to have? A lifestyle people love, or a lifestyle people don't love, but like the freedom financially, the freedom to do whatever I want, like the freedom of being my own boss. Like, there were so many things that I should be grateful for, but I was so miserable, and I didn't know why until the day that he asked me for open relationship. And that was the thing that got me. I then realized it was the isolation. So the isolation was the other thing that kept me around, because slowly it was like, instead of helping me figure out how to keep relationships, it was an immediate cut them. You don't need them, Mads. You don't need them to get to where you want to go. And it's like, at the time I was like, yeah, you're right. I guess I don't need them to, but like, I still care about that. Like my core values, relationships with my family and friends is one of them. Community is a big one. I didn't realize how big it was until I realized that I do have that as a core value. And that was where I didn't know until he asked me for open how isolated I was. And that's the scary part, was that I felt so confident throughout it of our relationship, and I will say I had friends around. I just couldn't tell them the honest truth because I didn't want them to think a different way of us, because there were so many things going against me, like, and I tried to beat them, but I couldn't. And so how I decided to get out of that, so now we're caught up to like the love bombing, the isolation, like the power manipulation, all of those things is how he got me and how I stayed. And then now how I'm leaving was where it got really hard, because I always thought a life without him was because he would die before me, and I didn't love the thought of that. But I remember one of the days that he told me how he had an offer on one of his businesses, and it scared me shitless, because I'm like, if you sell this one business, like, you aren't even talking with me about it. Like, we're not a team. And that's when I was like, it's okay. Like, you can do what you want, but we're supposed to be you tell me that we're partners. Like, you tell me that we are business partners and we're lovers and we're all these things together. And you always say that, like, it's always together, but it's not. And that was the scariest one of all. And I think that was another reason why I ended up staying too, was because I knew that I wasn't seen as equal. And so I was trying so hard to be seen as like equal to him. But the reality is I never would be. There's a lot of things that go against equality of me and him. One, I'm a female and I'm younger, and two, he is a classic white male and has a lot of privilege, but he worked hard for all of that. I will give him that. It's a lot of things that he worked hard for, which I admired at the same time. The one thing that I want to kind of go back on is how when he asked me for the open, that's when I realized, like, I have to leave, but I didn't have enough strength to leave, I will say. I am a very strong person. There's a lot of things in my life that I've overcome, and a lot of, like, mental things that I've overcome. Like, I have a really good, I had a really good mental health. Like, the way that I went about life, I thought it was all really, really healthy, and then this rocked me, and when I started going to therapy, I started realizing, like, I would say the whole first 3 months, from February when he asked me for open to March when I finally moved out, we had like little to no contact from like April to May. I went on a date. I was overwhelmed. I was also learning a new extension method, just keeping busy. I was keeping as busy as I could. It was actually the busiest month I ever had was in March and April, when I was like the literal, like, most lost in my life in 2023. And I just work. That's what happens whenever I get to certain like out of control in my life, I'll just work away. So I've gotten healthier habits now. But to get out, I started realizing, like, I'm not done. I know I'm not done. I still love this man so much, even with all the stupidity of his. What I've held hope for was that he would get his head out of his ass. Like, I'm here. I'm willing to play ball, but like, you got to put your part in too. And I will never forget when my therapist told me, I was like probably 2-3 months in on therapy. And she goes, Mads, I just want to remind you, like, the relationship is only going to work if both parties do it. And right now I just see you doing all the work. So just remember that. And I tried so hard to not have that be the truth, because I knew that I was doing all the work, and I knew that it was going to be, in the end, me hurting. Like, I knew it, but I was like, but I can't give up on things. I don't give up on things. So I was like, okay, how? And she actually offered up this book to read for the both of us, and it's called Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel. Phenomenal book. Highly recommend all couples to read it. It's interesting. It gets, your thoughts going, kind of. Yeah, it's an interesting book, and I will say I really enjoyed it. And it gave him, so he actually read it. That was the first thing. He gave me effort. So come summertime, one of his jobs is not as busy, so it's not busy season is what I say. And he's available to me in the summer, every summer. Around the end of May, beginning of June, he's always available, and he quote-unquote puts effort in, right? So I was seeing that, and I was like, all right, let's see how long this sticks. Like, I'll let him do this. If he wants to put this work in, I'll let him do this. I'm still not closed off all the way. Like, I still have my Hinge app. We're still in open, blah, blah, blah. And it was interesting. Like, there was a lot of months of us talking about boundaries, like what it looks like for him, what he wants in a relationship, trying to figure it out. And like, again, there was a lot of things that he asked of me, and I think I'm going to keep those ones private because, yeah, I just don't know if it's necessary for everyone to know it. However, the biggest thing is that I tried, and I know that I tried, and I gave my freaking whole heart into this relationship, even at its worst, and that I saw him, giving effort, and I told him, I said, I'm the only one going to therapy. Like, the only way that this will work is if we go to couples. And I was like, but I'm not doing any of the work. Like, you can find the person, you can commit to the times. I was like, I'm not putting in anything because I'm doing all the work on my own individually. So if you want this, go at it. And so, yeah, he found a therapist. He sent me a few and was like, which one do you feel better with? And we found one. Her name was Liz. And honestly, it was great, I thought. Like, I would call my mom after sessions and be like, Mom, like, this is, like, going really well. Of course, she's, like, dying inside. Sorry, Mom. And, yeah, I was just, like, in those sessions, we talked about how we wanted to explore open, what that looks like. And what was great about Liz was it came down to, like, trusting your partner and having wickedly amazing communication and respect. And none of that, I would not describe my ex with those characteristics. So I was screwed from the get-go, but I learned things. And so I was doing 2-a-day therapies. I was going to couples first and then individual after to discuss my couples. And I thought it was going good until we finally had busy season started, sorry. And this is when he loses himself every year. It's like fucking clockwork, dude. And it happened again this year, and I'm not even with him. So, like, you can see it. He doesn't handle his stress well. And I told him, I was like, you don't handle your stress well. Like, that's something you have to work on. You take it out on your loved ones and me, because I'm pretty much your only loved one in the actual state of Colorado. So, yeah, he started losing himself. And when busy season started, really just kind of really just neglecting me again. And I was just kind of being again, and I was going to my weed gummies again, and I just was working. And then, I was just waiting. I would be working and I'd be waiting. And then there was a time that I was supposed to go to a Kesha concert with one of my friends, and I opted out because I had a couple session and it rocked me. And I just wanted to stay home with him though, because there was no need to go out because my person was right beside me. But it just really sucked because I chose him over my friend, and I was getting back into those habits again, and I noticed it, and I was like, damn it, he does this, he pulls me back in, and then all of a sudden when I'm in, he wants to dip and makes me question things, and then he can't handle it. And during that time of us figuring things out, our boundaries, this is at the end of the year of 2023 into 2024, I downloaded the open apps, dating apps, different types of dating. I tried. I really did. I just couldn't pull any triggers because I'm this isn't me, and I also don't feel safe with you, which ultimately I won't feel safe with anything that happens. And that's where I was I can't do this. But I don't want to lose him. And that's where I kept going at. And so finally in 2024, there was an event that he took me to, and I was so excited. I was like, how about I spice things up and I do something really thoughtful for him. And I got all dolled up. I got a really nice dress, and I got really pretty, and I felt really good, and shit. It was so embarrassing what happened. It was the saddest scene you would have in a movie. I told him about all the things that I had, surprises I had for him, and I thought he would be so excited because it was something a little different for me. And I tried going at an angle that I thought would grab him, and he shut me down before we even left for the event. And I remember, excusing myself. I was I just had to go to the bathroom and real quick before we leave. And I was don't cry, because I spent a long time on my look, and it doesn't usually take me a while to get ready. Clearly, I'm not. So anyways, I was just keep it together and keep a good attitude. That's all you need. So he'll be happy for the night. And all he was worried about was, energy shifted. He was worried about was getting sushi, and he kept bitching about the whole night about how he has got to leave in the morning for a 10-day road trip, and everyone's exhausted, everyone's tired, no one has a good attitude. And I'm honestly, it's just you. That's what I really knew. That was this is the shittiest feeling ever. I'm at my prime in my age and my life, and I feel love shouldn't be this hard. I met up with girls the next day though, and honestly, Marissa, Joe's, and Ken's, fucking bless. You girls hyped me up so much. You guys really made me feel better that day. It sucked, and I let it go. I brushed past, and in 2024 there was events in July that I wanted to go back to, and one of the things was I wanted him to actually come back to my hometown and meet my family and be a part of my life. And we literally booked tickets, and again, this is the same. It's again, clockwork with him. It's the busiest season. He loses himself the most at this time of the year, and it's February and March. And he flew me out to Vancouver, and we had a quote unquote great time. But before we left, he told me how he was. He said that it wasn't going fast enough for this open relationship, that he needs to make a move, and he's interested in this person, and he's gonna message her, and told me her name and how he knows her. And told me before he did it for the first time ever, which I was like, okay, there's that. At least he didn't do it behind my back. And yeah, I was like, okay, like, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. Like, go for it. And I guess I just think that at that time I was like, at least he didn't lie to me. So maybe there is progress. And this is what open is. Like, you know, you are talking to me. You're not doing anything wrong. And then we get there and we had a great trip in Vancouver. Like it was so great. Honestly, I cherished that trip. It's when I had like the most hope until literally the next week. And it all came crashing down again. And it was just actually at our last couples therapy session, he wanted to say things that were unnecessary. He just picked at things that just weren't necessary. And it was a date like the night before, and I was like, hey, like, I'm not mad, but like, why are you being so mean to me? He's like, no, he's like, you overreacted over this. And essentially what he said is that he hates my hometown. And I just looked at him and I said, like, honestly, I don't know why you hate it. Like, you've never been there. And like I grew up there. Like, it's kind of mean for you to say that. Like, it's one thing for me to say it because I freaking grew up there, but I don't hate my hometown. I literally named my salon after my hometown. So like, the genuine confusion I had was more like, why are you saying this? And it was so bad that like every time he can't handle it, like he just shuts me out. And it's like, I didn't realize how unhealthy that was. Like, if he just didn't have enough, the shit he would start would then get turned on me. And then I would be like, I'm sorry. But then I'm like, but I don't know what I'm sorry for. And I'm also trying to like ease up. I don't want to fight. Like, there's no reason to fight. And like, you're not wrong, I'm not wrong. Like, what is this for? And that's how I like to approach it. Like, what is all of this for? Like, why are you not, like, we were just cuddling and now you're shutting me out, and you literally, like, it would be to the point where he wouldn't touch me, and I'm just like, this is so, it's so immature. And I'm like, I just don't understand what I do. Like, how does one deserve that all the time, you know? Like, punishment. It's like this, it's mentally exhausting. And yeah, I'm like, I know I didn't do anything wrong. I always knew I did nothing wrong. But then all of a sudden, I'm doing something wrong. And the next day we went to, he woke up and we were going to go to yoga. And I wasn't going to go. And then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go. And he woke up and the first words he said to me is, he looks at me and he goes, you know I'm fucking right. And Liz is going to tell you that today. It literally was 5:45 in the morning. So we were going, or like, I think it was 6:30. And I'm like, I was like, okay, then I'll be wrong. Like, at that point, it's like, what does that give you? You know? How does that make you feel, beating down the one person you quote unquote love on something I have already apologized for, and I don't even know why I apologized for it. And that's when I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I don't know what else to do other than stay silent and be small and just barely exist when he's ready. And then we went to that session, and it was the best session that we had because Liz finally put him in his place. And for the love of fucking God, the session wasn't about me the whole time and my shit, which it wasn't even like I have that much shit. The shit that it was essentially he was sitting on the same couch with me. But I left, and she gave him a humble piece of fucking pie, and we didn't go back after that. We broke up the next week. And that, my friends, is where it all started. I started being like, okay, the patterns are there. I've had all of the evidence. Like, everything you knew, you now saw. You've seen him right in action. Literally to each month, it was the same thing. He blew up on the same stuff, at the same pressures, with the same thing. And like, I was just like, I'm not the one I'm going insane because I'm staying in this. But now it's like, how do I get out of it? And I will say, like, I know I'm getting a little over on time, guys, but 2024 was probably the toughest year of my life. I thought 2023 was, but it wasn't because I still had him and we were still like, I still felt all of that dopamine, that false dopamine, but like it was still existing. And then 2024 was me detoxing from him, trying to get away. And so I did as much as I could. You know, I went to Vail for my birthday. I went to Steamboat with my other friend for my birthday. I tried to stay as busy as I could. Partied still a lot, but then I realized that wasn't serving me. And then I signed up for, yoga teacher training so that I could keep my mind busy. I honestly don't even know if I want to teach yoga, but I was like, I need something to keep me busy in the summer because that's when he's available. Like, it was all strategy on my end too. Like, I know he'll come back. I know he will come back and he will ask me of these things and he will do all the right things, and then I fall for it again. And I was like, we gotta stay busy because no one's holding you accountable, Mads. Everybody wants from me is to be happy. And it's like, he's not my happy, but I still would go back. And so, I was doing so good in the summer until there was an incident in the summer where it set me backwards and I went straight back to him. And it's because I felt like alone again, which is fine. And come October of 2024, October 4th is when I finally pulled the trigger because it was the whole game thing again. And, he led up the whole summer. He asked me, what is it that you need from me so that I can make this work? And I said, the only thing that I need you to do is go to therapy weekly, and especially during the busy season. And if you do that, I'll entertain it. Knowing damn well I wasn't fucking going to do it because I knew damn well he wouldn't do it because he doesn't prioritize me. He prioritizes different things. And that was what was happening, was he kept promising me things I never followed through with. And a couple of those things, like, invitation to Vail. And then, what do you know? Well, the weekend got overwhelming. So, like, I can't do Vail. But, like, how about we go to the Four Seasons to get massages? Cool. Let's do it. And, like, fucking, I was like, okay, I'm not holding my breath. I'm not even putting it on my calendar. Because, like, the amount of times I blocked off my calendar and he went back on his word to then, like, missing out essentially on, like, business because I rescheduled clients for him and stuff. And anyways, we were supposed to do that, and what do you know, lo and behold, he just has an entire blowout. And I'm like, listen, buddy, I don't understand. And there's always two sides to this story, right? And this is my side. So if you're listening, thank you because you're listening to my side. And honestly, his side will just be like, it was good. Sex was great. We did. And I actually literally, it did happen. He had texted me, and it was the stupidest text. It was the most predictable text that I knew was going to happen, which is why I hightailed it out of there for Christmas, because I knew. But yeah, he said, we had an insane ride together. You were building your life and business. I was going through life-altering changes. Our hearts met and we conquered all. I will always be thankful for your love, in all caps, friendship, strength, personality, and wisdom. I am sorry, exclamation point, in all caps. To be honest, go fuck yourself. It's a false apology. Tell me what you're sorry for, and then maybe I'll start to believe it. Also, we conquered all. No, you destroyed my entire existence. You conquered, you might have conquered. I conquered nothing. I had to essentially hit factory reset on my life. And that was the hardest thing that I had to do, was realize I have to let go of everything. So I made an exit strategy. I finally got financially untwined last year, which was great. I quit the rooftop gig, which was great. And my last high is just, being at his building still. But it's funny how you don't see him whenever you put boundaries up. And yeah, my God, that's 44 minutes in, ladies and gents, if you are listening. I guess what I want to say is, yes, that's all deep, and like my heart is literally pounding right now. I am so proud of where I'm at, and the things I didn't say yes to. And I'm so happy that I was able to have the help from my therapist and then the help from friends to truly get out of something that was extremely hard to get out of by yourself. So I kind of talked to you about values earlier in the podcast, and it was something that I wanted to bring up to end this podcast. I did not realize this, but I think it was over this summer. It was in 2024, this past summer. I went into therapy and I'm like, Heather, like, I just don't understand, like, why we don't work. I don't understand why we can't be on the same page yet we're on the same page. Like, why doesn't this work? Like, I was a wreck. I was depressed. I was losing what felt like everything, which in hindsight I'm gaining so much more. But I was like, why? And she's like, do you know your values? And I was like, honestly, I don't. Between the mix of being raised Catholic and being under this man's spell, I don't know what the hell I believe anymore. And so we spent an entire session, I think almost 2, on finding my values and my morals. And that was super helpful because literally at the end of the session, I had my 5 core values. And it's interesting because she pointed out, she's like, I just want you to know, like, sex and power were not on yours. And you know that would have been on his. And I'm like, I know. And, like, that's where it comes down to. And then recently I listened to a Mel Robbins podcast, and she had said there needs to be 2 things that need to exist in a relationship: your dreams and your values. They both have to align. If one and the other doesn't align, it's not going to work. And the thing about my ex and I is that our dreams aligned, but our values did not. And I just didn't know my values. So at the end of the day, it's not that deep because our values just didn't align. But you do have to know what you value in life and what your morals are in life in order to connect and find the right people. And that's kind of what I wanted to end the podcast today with. I know this is almost damn near an hour. Finding your values and knowing that is super important when finding partners in life, finding friendships in life, finding, being with family too. It's a big thing, knowing where they're at so that you know how to be where they lie in your life. And at the end of the day, it's just not that deep. So, like I said in the beginning, I wanted to give you guys my socials. So I keep saying so, and it's annoying me. Okay, choose a new word. My socials are going to be for my personal. I haven't created an Instagram for It's Not That Deep yet, just because it's a lot of work, and I already have 2 social media platforms. So my personal one is mads_cook, and it'll be IG, and that'll be where you can find the podcast. And then also I'll probably put a lot of, like, It's Not That Deep content on there. And then if you're interested in hair, if you're in Colorado, that is also something that I do on my full-time gig. Not something I do. It is literally what I do. I specialize in lived-in hair color and extensions. And that Instagram is mads.cook.hair. Surprise, surprise. And yeah, go ahead and give it a follow. I'll also be posting my podcast there because I do think I will have some hairstylists join the podcast just to chit-chat and see what it is we love. I have to get a second microphone, but that's for a different day and a different problem. Anyways, I really hope that you guys got to know me a little bit better on this episode number 2. I'm actually not going to edit anything out this time. I don't ever want to. The first one, things just kept flowing out, so I had to. But this podcast is as is. I also will have video on it. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned something from this one. Like, I'm going to break down everything that I learned from my relationship on the next episode. And then your girl's moving on because, honestly, I'm tired of fucking talking about it. All right. Peace out.